All right, here we go, guys. This is going to be episode one. Uh, Scott here with Christian. I think we're calling it pick and pod. Maybe we'll see. We'll see if it sticks. But that's what we'll go with for now. Uh, but work in progress, guys. Um, Today we're going to be talking about the West and the NBA. A lot of great storylines, a lot of great teams. You got, I think, maybe some sleeper title contenders here. Christian, what I really want to start off though with is, do you think the East is actually better than the West now?
I absolutely believe that after the favorites, I would say, in like obviously Lakers and Brooklyn aside, I believe the real talent lies in the Eastern Conference for sure. I just think they're deeper.
I think, yeah, especially I think when you look towards the obviously the top four teams,
Hmm.
but even when you get down to it, yeah, I think agree deeper. But that's we could dive into that a little deeper later. Just kind of a little thought there. Let's start with the Denver Nuggets.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
uh Denver Nuggets made some moves here in the offseason. They lost JaVale McGee, Paul Millsap, obviously. But they did add some players, including Jeff Green and JaMychal Green.
Hmm.
This team is led by last year's MVP, Nikola Jokic,
The Joker.
um, the Joker. Any thoughts on them going into the season? What you're looking for? Expectations? Anything like that?
Well, I would say to me, an addition that can't be understated enough is or overstated enough, I should say, is Jeff Green. That's a really big addition, especially taking him away from Brooklyn. He just gives them versatility, which I feel like the past couple seasons they haven't had. They usually have players that can come in, spark plug. They can either give you like a lot of buckets, help facilitate, but I don't know if anybody on their roster is truly versatile. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, one of their younger talents, Michael Porter, he clearly is one way. He's trying to get more of a two-way, especially with his athleticism and his measurables. So I think Jeff Green's going to be really important for them.
Yeah, kind of what they were hoping to get from Paul Millsap, and I mean, they definitely got it out in the beginning, like earlier in that contract. I think these last couple years, just with attrition and stuff like that, it kind of slipped a little for Paul. But I think Jeff Green's going to be really nice for them. I know you mentioned Michael Porter, who's going to be really key for this team. Um,
Yes.
this is a team with championship aspirations. And when you have an MVP like Jokic, who's a legit, in my opinion, top five player, no doubt. You need surrounding cast and guys to step up. Obviously, his running mate Jamal Murray is going to be returning from a torn ACL, and so you're looking. This MPG has really good opportunity here in the beginning of the year to step up and take that next step and prove he could be a legit running mate with those two guys.
No, I absolutely agree. I also think he can also help them with their on the defensive side of the ball. Like I said earlier, last year they were ranked 20th in defensive rating, and obviously we know they don't have a problem scoring the ball. You know, they were seventh in offensive rating last year, so offense is clearly not an issue. They got some important re-signings that they did with Will Barton, bringing him back, going to go get Austin Rivers. I'm assuming they liked what they saw in him. Uh, I think emphasis this offseason was definitely to be um, a little bit more balanced. You know, I know Mike Malone is a really good coach and he's really good at making adjustments. And I feel like him getting his hands on a versatile player like Jeff Green will do wonders for them. But the other emphasis, they gotta make up production for not starting the season with Jamal Murray. And I think that's what you saw them focus on with the re-signing of Austin Rivers and Will Barton. Not to mention, I'm sure you're going to touch on this, but they extended Aaron Gordon, you know, and he looked really good for them. But then there was times in the postseason where I don't know what was going on there. I don't know what's going on with Aaron Gordon. So it's going to be interesting to see him after a training camp with the Malone and his coaching staff to see what positions they put him in. Again, defensively, he has some really good moments for them, which is why I think they're going to try to improve on. So yeah.
Getting back on the Murray injury, he's scheduled to return looking at like January, February.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of get a schedule break here. Last year they were 25-11 at home, and 10 of their first 16 games are going to be in the Pepsi Center. So that's kind of a schedule break for them early on, which could really help this team, because they're definitely going to want home court advantage come playoff time. They're going to be one of those top seeds. So I like their chances actually. And with the schedule, Michael Porter's development, you mentioned Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon, to me, I personally wouldn't have done the trade, just because my philosophy is if you're going for a title and you have assets like Denver did with core pieces, you kind of swing bigger, you know what I mean, in my opinion. Baron Gordon's still a really good piece, and you mentioned versatility for them. He's another guy that definitely does bring some versatility. Maybe not the high-end ceiling like you could get with a Michael Porter, but he's definitely be solid for me. A question mark on this team for me, definitely backup center. When Jokic comes out of the game, they're going to be running out with Bol. They lost McGee, so we'll see how they do there. The Porter, obviously development, and hoping Jamal Murray comes back to form. But this team definitely should be a contender in my eyes. I'm sure we'll talk about other teams that we expect to win, especially deep playoff runs. But this is one for me that I think can really make a good playoff run and continue building through next couple of years. Their core is young. They have over $28 million in cap space this offseason. So they're set up well.
You know what? To piggyback off that, who's going to fill in for Jokic when he goes to the bench? That's what I'm most curious to see, how they utilize exactly what they do with Jeff Green. It'd be interesting because obviously he played at the 5 for Brooklyn. Again, different situation, but I would not be surprised if we see Jeff Green playing some time at the 5, just to see what they got there and see, the pieces and the rotations.
Yeah, you could definitely get away with it. I think in the West a little more. There's not as many dominant big guys, so it could be, Mike Malone. He'll run out some creative lineups here and there. So we'll see what they got. Moving on to Minnesota, the Timberwolves. They were 23-49 last year, finished 13th in the conference. Didn't make too many additions. They did have a coaching change. You go from Ryan Saunders to Chris Finch. Any thoughts on the coaching change or any outlooks for Minnesota for you?
I mean, Minnesota is going to be Minnesota, to be honest with you. I hate to sound really pessimistic regarding Minnesota, but one thing I will say is I am a fan of their talent, though. That's why I'm not in favor of their GM and then parting ways, because I actually feel like they were finally starting to get some nice pieces and get the ball rolling in Minnesota with what they currently have. But again, it's going to be interesting to see with Karl Anthony Towns being here the entire season. I know he had a really rough year the previous season. He's fought back through some injuries. We can't forget, I believe he's a top 10 talent in this league. I believe Karl Anthony Towns is an incredible player. I think he's got that kind of potential. Obviously, oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name.
D'Lo?
No.
Edwards?
No. Edwards. Edwards, to me, I'm expecting to see a really big jump. I know the past couple of seasons, we've seen some of these lottery picks have tremendous second seasons. I'm not expecting anything less from Anthony Edwards. But I've also heard him mention to the Minnesota media that he actually wants to take more of an emphasis on the defensive side of the ball. And with his athleticism, that could be a really big help for them on the perimeter defensively, because they didn't struggle to score the ball last year. That was not one of their issues.
Anthony Edwards definitely is a very intriguing prospect with his athleticism. He does kind of take a high volume of shots. The thing with this team, for me offensively, I feel like when your lead guard is D'Angelo Russell, and you have another wing who's going to have maybe an inefficient but high volume score like Edwards, your just efficiency isn't there. And I mean, we saw it last year, their offensive rating of a 109.3 should finish 25th in the NBA.
Mhm.
It's tough. It's tough to be efficient in a league that is increasingly becoming more and more efficient when, you have guys that are just kind of gunslingers. And but I mean, we see what they could do. The big addition, as far as like roster wise, you bring in Pat Bev from the Clippers.
I mean,
Um,
I mean, I mean, really? Like,
I mean, for me, like, I think I can understand the thinking here because, yeah, Patrick Beverly is a goon, but from all reports, that locker room has a bunch of immature guys. Okay. Um, D'Angelo Russell's never been known as a leader per se. And Cat, I agree with you as far as the talent. He's a big that could legit step out. He can play defense, but I don't know. He's historically also had some question marks as far as like the mental aspect of the game. So bringing a Pat Bev could help at least bring a grit to this team, who did rank 28th in the NBA last year in defensive rating. That it could kind of spark a fire under these guys. Vegas has them at 34 and a half over under for their wings. That's about man. I mean, we get 10 more games this year. But that's a whole 11 game jump. I don't know if I see them reaching that mark. Um, I totally expect them to be in the lottery again, to be honest.
I'm gonna be honest. They're gonna be very difficult to watch. They're gonna be very difficult. And what I will say about Patrick Beverly, that I don't know how he's gonna gel in that locker room. I'm looking at the experience on that team, and like you said, very immature. There's a lot of youth on that team, and I don't know if Patrick Beverly is established enough in this league to really command a locker room that immature. Especially, they do have some talent. Like, these aren't terrible players. These guys got, they're not bad players. It's just as a collective, they're not that good together. Chris Finch still has a lot to prove as far as I'm concerned. I feel like when you get guys like Patrick Beverly, vets that have been around, coaching to me is huge. How you allow it's gonna be interesting how Finch is gonna utilize Beverly in the locker room. Will he really be that vocal presence in the locker room? That's, I don't know. For veteran guys like that, coaching is huge to me.
The locker room, yeah, I actually do hear your point there. But I was thinking more as far as like on the court though, having somebody out there that's because I mean they have some other guys that play defense. I feel like a Kogi and whatnot.
Yeah,
So, but
ability.
when you throw kind of a guy that's gonna at least put on the look that, hey, I'm putting an effort out, especially at that lead guard position, you hope it trickles down to guys like Cat and stuff.
How many minutes you think Patrick Beverly gonna get though for that impact, my guy?
He's gonna be playing.
You think he get okay?
He's getting some burn. He's over 20 minutes.
I would say, because I understand your point, I would say it would be really interesting if they can start the season off well, and you got Patrick Beverly doing what he's doing. You got those young guys looking at him like, yo, this guy's been on some quality teams. I believe he can get in their psyche, and his energy can rub off on the team. But if this team stumbles out the gates, man, and they're not winning ball games, I'm sorry. I just don't believe Patrick Beverly is going to be that example. I just don't see it.
Yeah, that's fair. Um,
Winning solves
yeah.
everything.
Anything else you want to hit on Minnesota?
Nah. Nah. The most exciting thing about Minnesota is that we're gonna be looking forward to the lottery and seeing if they mess it up or not. I'm sorry, Minnesota is just not. No, we're no.
All right. How about, I don't know if this is any better, but let's talk about Portland, Rip
Oh,
City up there in
yes,
Oregon.
I love it. I love it. Let's talk Portland. Start off.
All right. So Portland, of course, the big looming thing with Portland is obviously the Damian Lillard situation. He's come out and kind of initially seemed, all reports were indicating in his kind of reluctance to squash them it seemed like he wanted out. He's recently posted pictures and come out like Portland's my team. I'm right through it. I'm interested to see bringing in Billups and some new faces as well. Larry Nance, Tony Snell, bringing in some defensive guys, some guys that are real pros, as well as Billups. See how that's going to convince him trying to stay, because at the end of the day, when you have a guy like Damian Lillard, it's about winning a title. And if he feels they're not committed to winning a title, then get used to Dame in a different jersey.
Absolutely. Can you see anything happening at the trade deadline regarding Damian Lillard or no? Do you believe he starts this season, he'll finish the season? Like, what are your expectations regarding where you see this whole situation going? Is he checking the temperature throughout the season, or do you think he comes into training camp? Look, I'm here. I'm gonna give them this year. I'm gonna give Chauncey a full year. The West isn't as strong as it has been in the past. And we saw it due to last year, because I don't believe Phoenix was that good, me personally. I believe a lot of their success was based off circumstances. Dame is looking at that. What do you think?
I expect him to stay the full year. I think
Okay.
I think there was a fork in the road for Dame in this offseason, and that's the reason why you saw him really change his tune. I'm not saying he's committed past the season, but I fully expect him once he gets into training camp, he's locked in on this year, knowing how Dame is and the competitor in him, and seeing him carry teams like down the stretch, like going into the bubble, and even last year, like he put on just performances that were out otherworldly, and I fully expect him to kind of get that itch and like give Portland a full year minimum. Defensively, this team's been really bad though. They were a 115.3 defensive rating, which was 29th. So the second worst team in the NBA defensively. And it shows when you get to the playoffs, if you can't get stops and you're just relying on Dame to give you 50, it's tough to win that way.
I would say I'm definitely looking forward to seeing their emphasis having Chauncey Billups on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, you stated Larry Nance. I love that move, by the way. I love the Larry Nance move. He's an above average defender by all metrics defensively. We can't forget Patrick Peterson, them scooping him up. He can stretch the floor, and he does have a positive defensive rating. So I'm looking at this team, and a little fun fact for you for all the Tony Snell lovers. He was the first player in NBA history to finish a season with percentages of 50, 50, 100. Just want to throw it out there. But
Put him in the hall.
Put him in the hall. Tony Snell's got good capability. Obviously, the re-signing of Norman Powell, the 5-year, $90 million. I like Norman Powell. You know what I'm saying? They went up on a waiver and got Ben McLemore. Who knows? He's not a very good defender, which is why he couldn't get much run in Vogel's rotations last year. So also Cody Zeller, believe it or not, was one of Charlotte's best defenders. When you look at the numbers, that was kind of surprising, but he's got capability too. I'm looking forward to this Portland team, man. I'm be honest with you. I don't know how hot this take is, but I got them with home court advantage in the playoffs. I got them as a top 4 seed. I look at they've got enough continuity with the best players on their team having CJ. We can't forget that before CJ got hurt this past season, he was balling out. CJ was balling before his injury, and he's been under a lot of scrutiny. Every week you look, he's mentioned in trading rumors. You know what I'm saying? I believe he's got some chips on his shoulder. So I'm a fan of this Portland team, man. I really like them.
I think a top 4 seed for me is a little bit of a stretch.
Really?
Personally, yeah. I'm interested. Vegas has them at 44.5 wins, puts them at about the 8 seed. I definitely think they're a playoff team. There's some teams I like better than them, obviously. I'm interested to see what Chauncey does offensive side of the ball. Everyone talks about what he brings defensively, but in past few seasons, this is a very ISO heavy system. Some pick and roll sprinkled in at the top of the key, trying to put Dame good spots, take advantage of the defense. I'm trying to see if Billups coming from the point guard mentality where he coming up was a very steady guy that was able to get his guys going, like Melo, Sheed, Rip. He was always able to get guys going. I want to see his influence on Dame on the offensive end and seeing if he brings in more of a motion set or more of a modern set. Because this team, while they were very ISO heavy, surprisingly, they were second in the NBA with 15.7 3-point field goals. How many of those were really assisted, though? That's a question. You know what I mean?
They were
So
also second offensive rating, which is, there's only one team that finished with a better offensive rating than them. So
yeah, 100%. And I think they got a lot of firepower. And I agree with you about the Larry Nance move. Larry Nance move's really nice for them. It gives them another pick and roll partner, that could really actually. Larry Nance, an underrated part of his game is coming off that pick. He's able to catch and read a defense, whether he's got a layup, whether he's got a guy in the corner for the three. Like he's really good and efficient at that stuff. So I like that pickup as well.
I got them. I don't want you to pass out or anything, but I got them having about 52 wins this season.
All right. I see
I mean,
coming out swinging out the gate.
This is. I didn't think I was swinging, but maybe I am because I'm looking at what they lost, and besides Melo, Cantor, I know they didn't want to see Cantor back in Portland after what Jokic did to that man. So, Rodney Hood, Rondé Hollis Jefferson. They didn't really lose anything. Their best players are all returning. They still got Covington, which is a good piece. I'm interested to see that lineup with Covington and Larry Nance on the perimeter defensively. So I don't know, man. We'll go down the list in the West, but I don't see many teams with what Portland got in the West.
Well, keys for me is one of this team, like many others, but I think this team especially is going to be health. CJ's coming off of a back thing. Nurkic is always questionable. And they really have just like Denver, not really any backup bigs for Nurkic. So, they could do it. I think Dame is that good where he can really rally a team, especially knowing that like, hey, this is my year in Portland. I'm going to give it my all. So, if Billups brings in some new juice, it's not out of the realm. Just not exactly where I have them.
What are you exactly the lowest on regarding this team? Like, what has you down on them, quote unquote?
Just question marks.
Okay, so more so unsure.
Yeah, just question marks mostly. Defensively, I think I don't see them being a top half of the league team defensively, even with the new blood. Because those two guards, man, in today's league, you still go at those guys, and Nurkic isn't really a stout rim protector. You know what I mean? So I think they still have holes. I could expect an improvement this year, whether it's enough to convince Dame to stay there long term. He's under contract, but like commit long term. That's another conversation, though.
Okay. We'll definitely keep our eye on them.
What about Utah, man? What do you think about Utah coming in this year?
So I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's close. I think they're the second best team in the West. You look at the pieces they're bringing back. They obviously knew they had to re-sign Mike Conley. He just signed a 3-year, $72 million deal. They got Eric Paschall in the trade with Golden State. I'm looking at them. They still got Rudy. They also picked up Rudy Gay as well, which I think could be huge for them as far as the versatility. At the end of the day, you got Donovan Mitchell and you got your guy Rudy Gobert, and the Stifle Tower. We know what happened in the playoffs, and I don't know. I really do feel like that team would have ended up in the finals if Mike Conley was healthy. I think, to me, their rotations bringing JC off the bench and into the starting lineup, I think it honestly messed up the rotations defensively, and I think Gobert really did get exposed because that team was putting so much pressure on teams offensively. I think it impacted their defense. But Utah's going to be a force. They're going to be a huge force this season.
Regular season, Utah is definitely a contender for that number one seed in the West. This team made a shift last year under Quinn Snyder, where they were looking at the landscape of the league and they're like, hey, we're going to take more threes, but not only we're going to take more threes, we're going to take them in transition. We're going to be pulling up. They ended up taking 43 attempts. They led the league with 16.7 makes as well. Led them to a 116.5 offensive rating, which was about fourth in the NBA. And defensively, we know their scheme is dominant for the regular season. For me, though, the pressure is on this team, maybe more than any other team in the NBA. Utah, they have built a roster that has given them zero flexibility. Okay, you're almost $50 million over the cap. You have pretty much no real great trade pieces. Because he's untouchable. As far as like Gobert, I mean, you could get something for him, but I don't think it's enough to like make you a contender right away.
Did I hear you correctly? Did you try and say they need to flip Gobert?
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying like I'm just listing their pieces that they could hypothetically. I mean, not that they would or they're thinking about it. What I'm saying is like the flexibility on this team is very limited. Okay. And you have an aging roster, and we've seen 2 years in a row, there's kind of a formula in the playoffs to take this team down. I agree with you that they probably would have made the finals, and not even as much as the Conley thing, as much as Donovan going down, because Donovan was really coming into his own. He's proven he's a real superstar in this league. Okay. He upped his numbers.
You believe in Donovan?
I 100% believe in Donovan Mitchell, man. That guy steps up in the moments. He had, remember, didn't he have 50 last year in the playoffs?
No, he was balling.
Let's see. So in the regular season, he was at 26.5 points, 5 assists, but he upped his numbers to 32.3 in the playoffs. And he was clutch. Like I totally believe in that guy. This team has to win this year, because if they don't, like, I would be interested to see what they want to do, because I don't know what the moves are. You gotta maybe convince. Is Donovan that happy there?
I would say this. I know there's a lot of things behind the scenes going on in Utah. They better get it corrected. I'm not sure if you heard about the whole race color theory that they're teaching in Utah, and they want to get rid of it. And Donovan expressed, out loud that they shouldn't be getting rid of that. They should be teaching about Black history basically in Utah. And someone in office in Utah told him he needs to go get educated. So from all reports, Donovan Mitchell is not fond of some of the beliefs in Utah. I'm not sure where that's going to leave him. You look around the association, and if players don't feel like they're exactly embraced, they're not going to really want to stay loyal. I don't know. It's a really weird situation with Donovan. I don't really know how long I see him in Utah, if I'm being honest with you.
They've been doing some interesting things to that. I think Bill Simmons had just listed this out the other day, actually, where he was talking about, okay, they've been doing some things to kind of appease to Donovan, right? You bring in Dwayne Wade, who was his favorite player growing up, into an ownership role, or whatever his role is that I just still don't really know. You bring in Eric Pascal, who is kind of his like best friend, in the league. You bring him in. Like, so they've been doing some things, to kind of appease him, which I don't know if that's a tell that he isn't completely happy and they're trying to like keep it under wraps, or if this is just like, hey, this is our guy, or if they're being sincere and being like a good organization of their star player. That's to be seen.
I've also got a question though.
Okay.
Do you believe, depending on how this season goes, should they look to move him? Because he's listed at 6'1". I know he's a phenomenal talent. And I probably should have been more clear with the question I asked you pertaining to Donovan Mitchell. Do you believe he can be the best player on that kind of a team, like a championship caliber team? Because if you look around the association, we got wings winning. He's 6. He's a small guy. I don't know if he can be that guy on a championship contender team. And the money that they tied up in Rudy Gobert, I'm with you. They got to win this year, because that's an experiment. Rudy Gobert getting that size of a contract, as your second best player, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
So in my opinion, I think he can be. I don't think he can be on this team. You've heard me talk about it many times. This team, I'm just not a believer. I'm kind of out on Utah as far as a playoff team.
Mhm.
Um, I think there's a formula, man, and with Gobert and that drop concept. Like you just run a small ball lineup out there, and it exposes them on defense, and then on offense, Gobert kind of is a zero where he's not
Mhm.
going to do anything to make you pay for it on the other end. And when you're allocating that much resources to a guy like that, it's really hard to win in the playoffs because now if they could double team your guy on Donovan, and they're just getting driving lanes and threes, and it's last year was not a fluke. We saw it the year before as well. Um, Personally, if you're asking me, if I'm Utah, man, you're in a tough situation. I mean, they put themselves in a spot where they literally have to win this season.
They have to.
And if not, like, man, you're in my opinion, you're looking at a rebuild, and you just hope that you can, Donovan's young enough where you can convince him, hey, like it's gonna be a rough year or two, but we're gonna turn this around. I mean,
Where do you have
good luck, but
where do you have them finishing in the West in the regular season?
they're going to be a top 4 seed. I think easily. They come in with so much firepower from the three, and defensively, like on a night to night basis, they're locked in. Quinn Snyder has done a really great job of keeping those guys locked in, and they're technically sound. They swing the ball well. They do a lot of things I like offensively and defensively.
Do you like the addition of Hassan Whiteside?
It adds something. It adds something, but it helps them in the regular season for sure, but he's just another guy in the playoffs in that system that can be
Mhm,
exposed.
mhm.
So they never really solved the Gobert issue, in my opinion, and that's why, like I said, I'm kind of out on this team.
I'm with you. I can't say I'm out, however, because injuries are a part of the game, and I think there's enough continuity on this team, and I actually believe in Quinn Snyder that they're an injury away from another team from them getting to the finals. That's just, I think they got enough going on, so I can't be out on them because of that. I'm with you. If they face healthy teams, I'm with you. That drop coverage would Gobert and their five. I'm not feeling that. You said it best. They got exposed. Run a small ball lineup out there, and it's basically over. So, but I can't be out on them because I'm be honest with you. I did not think the Phoenix Suns were going to end up in the finals, fam. So if they can make it to the finals, I can't be out on Utah. I'm sorry, I can't do that because I think Dom's
Well,
a better player than anybody they currently got on Phoenix roster.
well, speaking of Phoenix, let's get into them.
Let's go.
I'll come back to OKC. So for Phoenix, obviously you had JaVale, you had
Uh-huh.
Elfrid Payton, you get Shamit Face. This team, they're the reigning Western Conference champion. They had a core that really played solid basketball, under Monty Williams, very structured offense, which is just to be expected with a Chris Paul team, especially at this part of his career. They're going to come play half court, and they're going to run good sets, and they're going to get a good shot almost every time down. Um, the thing with Phoenix, they do re-sign Chris Paul as well to that 4 years up to $120 million, which would bring him into his age 40 season. I know you've been referencing you're not a big fan of this team. So my question to you then would be, because I think there is a real thing in sports as far as like you look at like teams that kind of taste success,
Hmm.
where coming into the next year they want it more, and they kind of use that experience to uplift them and kind of push them to a higher level. And so where do you expect to see this team, and can you see that happening for them where they use that experience and get into the finals as kind of like a push to make them a
No,
better team?
no, I absolutely do not. I know. It honestly, the reason why is because two things. First things first, Chris Paul. He can be their best player. That leads me to my second reason, Devin Booker. He got exposed to me in a lot of those playoff series. He is not he's not a great three level scorer. He's gonna have to work on that three because if you saw Patrick Beverly had this man locked up, He had him locked up because all he has to do is run him off that three, and he's going to let him take a contested two every single time. The way the game is played, it's just not the most efficient shot for him to be taking contested twos like that, giving up an open three. I'm looking at that. I'm looking at also, if you notice, Chris Paul played 70 games last year out of 72. You think he's gonna do that again this year? I don't think so. I expect they were one of the more healthy teams last season. They were also one of the teams that didn't really struggle from the whole COVID protocol situation. There was a lot of things that broke in Phoenix's direction because we all saw the tea leaves after the Lakers went up 2-1 on them. They weren't winning another game. So, me personally, this is on Devin Booker, and I need to see something from DeAndre Ayton. Now you made a name for yourself. You're justifying yourself being that number one overall pick. I need to see you to do something right now. Chris Paul to me is a great point guard, but he has to be around other great talent, I believe, to truly take a team there. I don't believe Chris Paul can have nights. He can have nights, where he's CP3. But if you're looking at a point guard performance like he did in the close against the Clippers, they're not going anywhere.
This team last year, they were kind of an average team as far as 3-point mades and attempts. They're about halfway in the league, but they still had they're seventh in offense rating, 116.3, sixth and defense with a 110.4. I kind of went over the scripted the play style. My other thing with them is I wonder if they kind of go the Utah route, where they just kind of up their 3-point attempts like by a lot. And I want to see if they do that and maybe give Cam Johnson some more run. I just want to see that and see what kind of adjustments they make coming into the season and see if I kind of like them for the regular season. To me, I agree with you as far as like playoffs. Like to me, I feel like they're second round out.
Yeah.
But we'll see what the matchup is, because I do think if you got Chris Paul, you're going to get good shots most of the time, especially early rounds of the playoffs. But if they can make some adjustments and kind of you see some development from the young guys, including Ayton, then I think this team could be a little better than we thought.
I got them. I mean, I said what I said, but I still got them as a 3 seed. In the West, I see them winning a lot of games, to be honest with you, in the Western Conference. If you can't tell by now, I'm big on continuity. With what we're looking at in the Western Conference, I believe teams are going to have a decided advantage that have their best players playing with each other for some years and getting that camaraderie. And I think piggybacking off of you said the success they had this past season, I believe in the regular season that's going to pay dividends. So I think they're going to win a lot of games in the regular season, which is why I have them in Utah and Portland in that top 4 range.
So with a team like this, where I think it's pretty well known they overachieved in the playoffs, due to injuries and stuff like that. I think that's an irrefutable, take.
Clippers with no Kawhi pushed them to 6.
Yeah,
with no Kawhi.
I guess my question then becomes is how do we truly gauge a successful season for this team, knowing where they have been, but keeping realistic idea of where they can be?
Man.
Because to me, it's just tough because when you re-sign Chris Paul to that deal, you're kind of telling your fan base hey, we're in the finals, this is where we're gonna be again.
Yeah.
But that's not really realistic in a lot of pundits' eyes, and that's not realistic in my eyes. So I don't know what success is for this team really.
I think it depends on who you're asking. Are you asking a Suns faithful? Are you asking Chris Paul?
Yeah, I'm asking the Suns and 4 guy.
Him? Oh, come on now. You know he think he gonna have that Larry O'Brien trophy at the end. Come on now. But I think it depends on who you ask. I think the organization, I don't think they're stupid.
Lil Wayne, he's a Suns fan apparently, right?
Lil Wayne, I don't know what his deal is. He's a Packers fan, which makes no sense to me, but he's a Laker fan. I don't get it. I really don't get it. But I would say who's their G? They got a James James
James
Jones.
Jones.
He's a smart guy. I believe a successful season of him would be making it back to the Western Conference Finals. He's not stupid. He this is a guy who knows a lot of basketball. He knows a lot of things broke in their direction. I believe their management would like to see at least another Western Conference Finals. Chris Paul wants that title, but he ain't getting it. So
Um, I also want to see what Mikal Bridges looks like this year. In the playoffs, he kind of really showed me a lot of things where he was a lot more versatile offensively than I initially had given him credit for.
same.
I want to see if they can lean on him some more, and because I agree, like Devin Booker, he's got some holes in his offensive game. He can't really shoot the three as far as not like guys that are pulling up off the dribble. He doesn't have a crazy range. His handle is not the greatest, where he's not able to
Not
really get separation. He's a lot of pull up jumpers, contested jumpers, and stuff like that. Like
He's not
so, he's
uber athletic. He's not gonna put pressure on the rim like that.
yeah. So there is a ceiling to this team where you're kind of hoping one of those guys, maybe him, Cam Johnson, somebody can kind of step up a little bit more. But
And you're
we'll
hoping
see.
injury to the better team this way. That's really I'm sorry. I love Mikal. I think Cam Johnson, I believe he's out of Duke, if I'm not mistaken, he's out of Duke, right? Cam Johnson?
Cam Johnson is a Kentucky kid.
Kentucky. I think they got a lot of talent on that team. But the system and they run with
Or
Chris
North
Paul.
Carolina. I apologize.
Is he North Carolina?
He's a Tar Heel.
He's a Tar Heel. Okay. They just need opportunity, but I'll be honest with you, they need better players. They need their best players to absolutely be the best version of themselves. If their three best players aren't the best version of themselves, that's basically where their season goes.
Speaking of best players, can you give me the best players on the Oklahoma City Thunder this year?
No. I mean, obviously we got Shea. We got my man Shea. But besides that, but on a side note, they have the worst barber in Oklahoma. I just want to throw that out there. No one has a fresh cut in Oklahoma. But no, I don't no.
I think we learned that when KD got drafted. So this team, obviously you lose Kemba Walker. You bring in a couple first round picks. You get Josh Giddey, Trey Mann. Obviously this team is stockpiled with picks. I have it up here somewhere. Okay. This roster is just loaded with flexibility for Sam Presti to play with. They could have up to 17 first round picks over the next 5 drafts, plus cap space to attain any player they want, really. So you're looking with the team that's really young. They brought in guys who it's kind of like the hipster team of the NBA. You got like Lou Dort, guys like that. So this team's going to struggle for sure, but you just bank on Shea Gilgeous taking a step, and
Are they
hopefully
trading him? Are they trading him?
you never know, man.
I mean, what's going on? He said he doesn't fit their timeline. The guy's what, 23 years old? Like,
well, they just re-signed him to a 5-year deal this offseason, though. 5 years, 172. So they seem, at least on paper, to commit to him.
I guess.
Obviously he suffered that tear in his plantar, but before that, man, he was balling out 23.7, 4.7, and 5.9 assists. Like this kid's got real talent. He's lengthy for his position. He can shoot. He's a good decision maker. And then you pair him with the 6th overall pick this year, Josh Giddey. He's another tall playmaker who has the ability to make really any pass on the floor. Like a lot of these young guys, though, he does have some shooting questions, which is not going to help them because this team really struggles putting the ball in the basket.
All I got to say is free Shea until it's backwards. That's all I got to say. I feel for this guy. I know everyone's concerned about Zion and New Orleans, but I'm really concerned about Shea in Oklahoma because this is a talent. He's a very promising young player.
He is. I mean, the best thing you got going for you, if you're OKC, you're a small market team. You have widely regarded as one of the best GMs with a lot of flexibility. So
or
we'll see how.
one of the worst GMs, depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah, he's made. I mean, I think I like Sam Presti. I think he's doing what he can. I think that he definitely has bad moves. I mean, most guys do. The James Harden one. I think you could never forgive for that trade. But
Since both of us are down on them this season, I got to ask you a question about their future, because you mentioned they
Mhm.
could have 17 first round picks in the 5 seasons.
Yeah,
Do you believe Lightning will strike twice for Oklahoma? Because this is a team that drafted 3 MVPs. Do you believe, out of these 17 first round picks, do you think Lightning's going to strike twice again?
I think it helps when you're gonna most likely have the highest odds for the number one pick next season. And not only that, but when I hear 17 over 5 years, I hear trade. So if you get hit on one of these guys within the next 2 seasons, you're still going to have enough ammo and cap space to bring in a third guy to pair with whoever your top lottery pick is, with Shea. And even like, they got other guys, Lou Dort, who is actually, he's getting better. He's obviously a premier defender in this league, but he also has he's improving as a shooter. He's getting more confidence in that aspect. So, this team is young and they're building. If you continue to develop them, I like the OKC's future. They're an interesting team to watch in the rebuild.
Interesting.
How about the Clippers, man? What do you think about the Clippers this year?
I think they missed the playoffs.
Oh, you're saying they missed the playoffs? No Kawhi or what?
I think with Paul George injury history, him having to take the load on himself, me personally, I don't see how they could be in the play-in game, the play-in situation. I just got 8 teams better than them, if I'm being completely honest with you. Hold on, I've got it in my notes right
Well,
here.
so Vegas has them at 45.5, which would put them at the 7th seed. On that number,
Vegas got him where?
45.5, that should put them 7th, I think, right in front of Portland, I
That's
believe.
hilarious, because I have the Clippers at 45 and 37 this season as a 9th seed.
Okay. I kind of like the under there as well. Um, and it's not really a Paul George thing, because I actually am interested to see how this team rallies around Paul George really being the number one option again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's going to be interesting because they bring in obviously like Eric Bledsoe. You bring in Justice Winslow, kind of gives you another like versatile wing there. But it's gonna be interesting to watch this team. This team hit a historic amount of threes last year, as far as like efficiency wise. Uh, I don't know if they can repeat that, especially when you throw Eric Bledsoe into the mix. He's
I'm a
not.
I'm a I'm gonna say this: Nicholas Batum gonna have to show up. They re-signed him, but I feel like there's a lot more expected of him this season. And we saw the last time things was expected of this man in Charlotte, what happened. So I'm looking at Nicholas Batum to really step up.
Nicholas Batum, is he gonna start for sure? You don't see like Terrence Mann taking that job from him.
Mm,
Terrence Mann last year, 51, 41, 83 shooting splits. And the playoffs really came alive, had some really spark moments for them. As a year without Kawhi, I could really see them trying to lean into the development of him.
I mean, I guess, but I don't know. I feel like Nicholas Batum is gonna be in that starting lineup. I think Man is gonna be on the bench, give them that spark.
I think I'm a little higher than you on this team. I know I pushed the under,
I was about
but
to say, I don't know.
I'm
You
like,
got them having less wins than I gave them. So I mean,
I don't know though, because like this team does have a lot of depth, man. They still have enough depth where I think they're definitely a playoff team.
playoff
Um,
team?
and I think they have enough depth to make the playoffs in the West. What's going to be
Man,
interesting is who starts at the guard for them. Do you think it's going to be Reggie, or do you think it's going to be Bledsoe?
oh, I think it's Reggie.
It's Reggie, right?
No, I would. I know how you feel about Bledsoe, so I mean,
It's got to be. Man, he put on a show.
he
And
Reggie was balling.
wasn't he the number one ISO scorer in the league?
He was, and then he was cooking. Reggie was getting buckets for sure. But I mean, last season they had a great season by all measures, but I just don't see it anywhere near to and I don't see it this season.
They're a weird team as far as like pressure goes because you just extended Leonard, which kind of really strapped them of cap space for years to come. You could go 4 years down the line, they still don't have any cap space, and they don't really have draft picks either. So with this core, like you kind of are in like a win now situation, but the problem is you don't know what's going on with Kawhi. I personally I don't see him coming back this season.
I don't either.
Um, so it's you're kind of punting on this year, but the pressure's still high, and you got Paul George who's got 3 more years till he can exercise an option. So like, what's his future look like? I don't know. I think could be this year for the Clippers could really come down to just being an evaluation of Paul George and his future with this team.
Mm, mm. Well, I mean, I know you and I have talked about this, but I would not be surprised if we've seen Kawhi and Paul George share their last dribble on that court together. I would not be surprised.
I don't think I would be either. Um, I don't know. The NBA changes so fast, man, nowadays.
It
Like
does.
players are going everywhere. Like you could think you see something coming and then somebody else requests a deal. So we'll see. We'll see what happens to them. Sacramento Kings,
Yeah.
36 and a half wins over under. I am taking the under all day long.
Really?
I am, yeah. They still got Luke Walton leading this team, don't they?
Yeah, they. I don't know how he's still employed, but yeah.
So this team has been
What's his
31
call?
and
I'm sorry to
oh, go
interrupt.
ahead.
What's his calling card? Offense?
He played with Kobe.
That's what I thought. Continue. Because I don't know what their identity is. They got like if you look at this
he
roster,
he
I
sat
like
on the bench next to
I
Phil
like
Jackson for long periods of time.
I like this roster better than I like. Who do we just discuss? Oklahoma. Like this team is talented.
No,
Like
yeah,
there's
like I don't think like I said Oklahoma is going to be probably the highest odds for the number one pick this year. But Sacramento still they're not a playoff team. I don't see it, man. This team, Luke Walton hasn't playing at a really high pace. They were ninth in the NBA as far as pace goes. They averaged 113.7 points per game, which was 11th. But man, they couldn't stop a nosebleed. And when you go into the draft, just team building wise, this doesn't make sense to me. You bring in Davion Mitchell, who in the summer league, to his credit, played really well.
Mhm.
But the problem is you already have 2 point guards on this roster. You already got De'Aaron Fox, who is kind of like just said that's your future, even though he really hasn't proven anything, at least not to me.
Oh, you're not sold on De'Aaron Fox?
I like the guy next to him a lot more than him.
Oh my.
You bring in Halliburton last year, who I don't know how he fell to your lap,
I don't
but
either.
you're blessed to be able to get Tyrese, and you're already kind of taking him out of his natural position, putting him at the 2. So why would you go out and draft another guard? Like,
It looks like something went down in their front office. There was a move I feel like that was supposed to get done. I don't know if it got snaked underneath them and Davion wasn't supposed to be on this roster, but clearly to the point that you're mentioning, or how many guards we don't have on this team, and they don't have bad. The thing is, they're deep at guard. Like these aren't bad players. Their best players are at the guard position. So I don't know what they're doing over here. It looks like a team
well, neither do they.
that somebody wasn't supposed to still be on this roster come training camp. A couple of these dudes was not supposed to be here. We know the Buddy Hield deal got wiped out from underneath them. They still got Buddy Hield.
Yeah, they do.
Like,
This brings up an interesting point. To me,
mm-hmm.
if I'm Sacramento,
Okay,
I'm on the phone with Philly.
you gotta be right.
You gotta be, because this is a team, okay, they haven't had a winning season. They have not been above 500 since 2006. Okay. Man, like you gotta bring something, you gotta swing for the fences at this point, Vivek. Like bring in Ben Simmons. I will give you De'Aaron Fox because I have enough confidence in Tyrese Halliburton as far as like a decision maker, a playmaker. He's efficient shooting the ball.
I would
I,
love to see De'Aaron Fox in Philadelphia with Joel Embiid, by the way. I would love to see that.
it if you're Daryl Morey over in Philly, like it's probably the best you could do as far as like what we've seen. And if you're Sacramento, why not take a swing on maybe who in my opinion is the best defensive perimeter player is and the guy that can give you 18 points, in transition, who you already like to play fast. Why not bring in Ben Simmons?
You know what? I don't know if it's the best that Morey could do, but I could say this: if there's a team he could fleece, it would be the Sacramento Kings. I believe he could end up with the best haul from them, even though Sacramento knows they don't want Ben no more and Ben don't want to be there. If there's any team he could get the most from, it would be from Sacramento, because Golden State wasn't having it. They're like, I'm not giving you any, no, I'm not having it.
Also, like if you're Vivek, you're bringing in a guy who a fan base and national media has kind of turned their back on. Well, as a franchise, like you haven't had anybody to really hold on to anyway, so why not bring them in? And you're enough of like a bad team, like you don't have anything to hold on to. Where bringing in a guy like
This
Ben
is
Simmons,
crazy.
like he's gonna be liked, like
The
because he's the
difference,
best they've had in a while.
you think, I'm gonna tell you this right now. I emphatically disagree with that take. I saw where you were going, and I was riding with you. I was shotgun, but I don't know if Ben Simmons is that much better than De'Aaron Fox just on their face. Because you gotta look at where you've seen Ben Simmons with an MVP caliber player alongside him throughout most of his career. It would be interesting to see Ben Simmons. I believe he's a talent, by the way. I'm high on Ben Simmons still. But you put him in Sacramento, okay, we're gonna see. Because I know if you take De'Aaron Fox and put him with Joel Embiid, they're a force. I can tell you that right now. So I don't know how much the Kings fan. De'Aaron is loved in Sacramento, man. That's the best player they've had since Boogie. Like De'Aaron Fox is, I'm not sure, if you're high or low on him, but to say that Ben will be the best player they've had in quite some time, I disagree.
I think I I think Ben Simmons is better than De'Aaron Fox. He's 10 times the defender.
By themselves,
Um,
though, by themselves, like there's not that
I'm
much.
talking, yeah, like in a vacuum, yeah,
Interesting.
in a vacuum. Ben Simmons still is. He's at a point where he's underrated, because of how bad the playoffs were and the look, and
Underrated?
I think he
Whoa,
is a
whoa,
little
whoa,
bit
whoa.
because there are guys out there that are like, man, like he can never play on my team, and I'm like, well, I mean, they still with Ben Simmons have made really far in the playoffs and have
So
had really high seeds.
so my question goes back to Rudy Gobert then, because is he overrated or is he underrated at this point based on his playoff performance? Would you say he's a
Oh,
little underrated?
he's overrated
He's overrated.
because
Interesting.
you don't have a whole fan base driving a guy out of the town.
No, no, no. We're just talking about the talents and the performance they put forth. Because I think that's a really good comp. Rudy Gobert and Ben Simmons. So if you're gonna
And
say Ben Simmons is underrated a little bit, you're not gonna say go because it's a flex that a player like Gobert can get you a number one seed in the regular season. Now you may have to modify in the postseason, and that goes on your GM and that goes on your head coach to make adjustments. But I think they're a lot closer together than you think. I do believe Ben Simmons is the better player.
Ben Simmons isn't getting MVP votes from John Hollinger. Like,
Oh,
Rudy Gobert is a little more overrated than
you
Ben
know what?
Simmons is.
I'm gonna say this. We're gonna revisit this. If this trade goes down, I would love to see what De'Aaron looks like with Doc Rivers and that talent. Because who's the best player that De'Aaron has played with in Sacramento? Then we're gonna see Ben gonna get a taste. Ben's gonna get a taste of some of these other trash teams out here with their coaching staffs and their rosters. We're gonna see what Ben really looks like. Because I'm by the way, I'm still big on Ben, by the way. I believe he should change positions. That's just me. I believe he's immensely talented. I think he's a really good player, but he's been around. He's been with some good talent. He's played with some very good players, and he has not coached. he's not been under terrible coaches either. He goes to Sacramento, bro. He's gonna be in for a rude awakening. He's gonna be in for a rude awakening.
Fair enough. Anything else on Sacramento?
Absolutely not. They can't be taking this much of our time.
You know, free my boy Tyrese. All right,
Uh,
let's
no,
send
no,
Halliburton to Philly instead.
no, no. Hey, if your boy Tyrese like that, let him take over Sacktown. Come on now.
I need Vivek. All right, Ben rocks. Ben rocks. Ben rocks. Moving on, we got right up the road here, Golden State Warriors. Vegas has them at 48.5 wins. This team's really hard for me because
Same.
out
I've
of
been tossing and turning.
every team in the NBA, I feel like they have the highest variable as far as the amount of winning they do. I could see them being a true title contender, and I could see them being a 5 to 8 seed very easily.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, you don't know what you're getting from Clay. You're gonna miss him for part of the year. I think this team did bring in some depth. You had Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody. You bring in Otto Porter to kind of shore up that bench unit. Andre Iguodala makes a return, and we can't forget, man, Steph Curry's fucking awesome.
He is fucking awesome. But I will say this because defensively, obviously, we know they were fifth. You know, they had the fifth best defensive rating. But offensively, man, as amazing as Steph Curry is, they were 20th. Where is the offensive production going to come this season?
Well, I think that's why, that we got to wait and see what Clay is, because you add Clay to that mix, and all of a sudden your ceiling offensively raises to another level. And not only that, but like the James Wiseman aspect of this is another reason like the variable is really high. And I think Steve Kerr really misused him last year, didn't really cater to his strengths. But thing that gives me hope with Wiseman is what we saw at DeAndre Ayton coming into the playoffs last year, where he really kind of embraced a role as the big man and like did things you like to see, rim runs, protect, and just finish and off the catch. Where like, why can't that be Wiseman?
I don't know. This is my thing. They don't look high on him still. The body language, it just doesn't seem like they're high on him. Usually when you take someone with the second overall pick. Wait, which pick was he? He was the second overall pick, right? LaMelo was third?
Yes.
Usually that's our guy. He's embraced. This seems like on draft night they were blindfolded and someone drafted them for them and like they wasn't expecting him. That's kind of what it looks like to me. Like I didn't see a scheme to get him initiated offensively. It was like, you know what, fool, you're on this team, blend in. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, well, that's in my opinion, this front office and this organization kind of has to make a choice. And because they've been trying to do this balance where I feel like they're kind of outsmarted themselves, where they have a mix of such youth that just doesn't match the timeline of the championship level veterans that they have. So where usually, when a Wiseman goes to like a Charlotte or a Minnesota or something, they're like, yeah, this is our guy, man. This is who we're going to build around. He's going to develop, like, even through the hard times, we're going to still give it to him. We're still believe in him. But when you have guys like Steph and Draymond on your team, and you got Steve Kerr, who have been in the finals, more than people ever do in their career, in their
More than some
lifetime.
franchises. More than some
Yeah,
franchises.
exactly. Like it just kind of muddies the water when you bring in those young guys and you kind of are asking them to do things they're probably not ready for.
That's a great point that you're making with the mix of the vets that they have and the not just vets but the experience of those vets. Man, they're not moved by no 19-year-old. They're like, fam, you gonna fit in where you fit in over here, and you can clearly see it. Man, I'm with you, man. It was criminal how he was utilized last year.
Yeah, I would like to see more, like, because what he can do right now is he could set picks, he could catch the ball, he could finish, he could kind of hit some of those shorter jumpers and like hook shots and stuff like that. But they really didn't use any of that skill set. They kind of
No,
really ingratiate him to trying to play Warriors basketball when all they had last year was Curry.
They wanted him
And
to replace Kevin Looney instead of trying to develop James Wiseman. That's what it looked like to me.
yeah, so Steve Kerr's got a lot to prove this year to me because he cannot be so stubborn in his philosophies. Um, and I think I do like their moves. I think they're a lot deeper this season where, Kuminga is going to be interesting. He was the guy in the draft who was really hard to pinpoint what he would be. He has potential to be a high end starter, but he could also he's got bust potential on him as well. So that's going to be interesting to see what Kuminga brings. Moody was a nice pickup. Bringing back Iguodala is going to help. I think the Wiseman aspect, because all indications were last year, Draymond really did kind of try and take Wiseman under his wing and, coach him up as much as possible. I think bringing Iguodala into the mix is only going to help that aspect though.
I don't know, man. I'm pretty low on them, if I'm being completely honest with you. I've got them in the playoffs. I do have them as the 8th seed. I've got them at about 46 wins just because I believe in Steph Curry and I'm rooting for Clay motherfucking Thompson because he is a bad boy. But I got them in the playoffs. I definitely got them. I think we're going to have a rematch and we're going to see Steph versus LeBron again in the first round. And we just going to make easy work of them. But, I think I'm not going to disrespect the chef like that and say he's going to miss the playoffs. I believe they'll be better this year, but I got them at the 8th seed. I got them at the 8th seed.
All right. What about the Los Angeles Lakers? The purple and gold. Vegas has them at 52.5 wins. Obviously, they make the big deal by acquiring Russell Westbrook from Washington. You bring back Dwight. You bring in Carmelo. You bring back Ariza. You're bringing in some youth with Malik Monk and Kendrick Nunn. As great as all those other guys is, it really comes down to how does the trio of Russ, LeBron, and Davis really mesh offensively, in your opinion?
I think it's going to be really, really, really good. I think it's going to be it's not a match made in heaven, but I just think there's so many nuances that goes with their play together. The fact of where they all are in their career, we know at the end of the day, LeBron's chasing 6. We know he wants 6. Anthony Davis, the scrutiny that he went through this past season, man, it was ugly for AD. You got people really disrespecting this man. They're calling him injury prone. He's got a chip on his shoulder. I'm not sure if you already saw the presser with Vogel talking about what AD's body looks like. He's transformed his body. He said he's going to be a force this season. I believe he knows it's time to take that reign from LeBron James. And Russell Westbrook, damaged goods. We know all the hate that this man gets. He can't mess this up. He can't mess this up. Let me tell you that right now. The two players with the most pressure on themselves is Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis. And I'm sure they're quite aware of that. So because of that, when you have those guys that got to come together and they're aware of the situation, they're going to make it work. Let's not get this twisted. At the end of the day, they're all incredibly talented and they're very smart basketball players. When you think about the experience that they have with Team USA, they've all been to the finals before. Russ was in the finals. He's had success. He's an MVP. When you add all those things together, they're going to be just fine. I'm not concerned with their fit on the court.
So offensively, it's kind of a weird fit. You have Davis moving to the 5, which is, I think, really going to help this team overall because he's just a matchup nightmare at that position. You also have LeBron sliding over to the 4, kind of making another transition. It was an interesting note, but actually, the fact that he slimmed up, because historically, when you look at LeBron, one of the main parts of his game is the ability to just overpower guys on the drive. So by him slimming up, I'm interested to see if this is just another version of LeBron we're going to get, because he's been relying on the 3 a lot lately. So I want to see if he really leans into that or how, just what he looks like slimmer, because if he loses kind of that overpowering aspect to him. Obviously you got Russ running the show now. Russ with LeBron is the weird fit as far as like if you just look at it like this player with this player, right? And take out kind of the intangibles of it. And the reason is just because Russ isn't really a shooter. Um, he does get to the rim, but he also is. They're both two guys that are historically high usage rate guys. So I think there could be some growing pains there. Um, the thing that gives me hope with this is, man, LeBron James, if you just look at the reclamation projects this man has taken upon, and like he
Right.
pretty much gave Dwight Howard an 5-year extension on his career.
JaVale McGee.
Rondo,
JaVale McGee.
McGee, like there's so many guys that like you think are out or
Caruso got paid
Caruso got paid, man. That's
because
gonna
he's
be a
not
big.
getting. If he plays with KD, he plays with the Joker, he plays with any other top 5 player, he is not getting paid like that.
That could be a sneaky big loss for the Lakers team. Actually, is the Caruso loss because he had real chemistry with LeBron and Davis on the floor, and he played hard on defense. He made clutch plays. Um, he always kind of rose to the occasion. So
I'm gonna tell you this right now: if we miss Caruso, we don't deserve to win the title. If we actually can point and be like, we miss that guy, we're not who we think they are. That's all I got. And that's no disrespect to Caruso. But the talent on this roster and the flexibility, fam, miss is a very strong word. That's like associating Jared Dudley. We're going to miss his presence in the locker room. If we miss either of those two, this team isn't who we think they are, who I believe they are. So that's what I got to say about the whole Caruso thing.
I hear you. And I mean, at the end of the day, like he's not a core, player like Russ, LeBron, Davis. Like that's the main guys on this team. That's who it's going to revolve around. And Caruso wasn't that guy. I'm just saying, like you need some of those Jags to to be relied upon. And so now, it's gonna be interesting. Malik Monk is a hell of a pickup, and
I
at
think that's
that
the pickup of the
price,
offseason. Yeah.
like I'm very interested. He's gonna be a household name playing
Yeah.
in LA.
we
Like,
got a nun, we got a monk. You know what I'm saying? We gonna be getting down.
the other thing I wanted to note with this team, real quick, uh, the last couple seasons under Frank Vogel, has been the number one defensive team in the league. I don't think it's been close. 106.8 defensive rating last season, and that's with LeBron and Davis missing time. Frank Vogel has really had this team committed on that end behind, their best players back in that as well, which it could really bode well for this team because if you look at like the rest of the lineup besides Davis, it's kind of, if this was a different coach, you'd be like, man, there's a lot on Davis' plate, and there still can be, but with Frank Vogel there, I think it's going to help them a lot.
Can I add another point?
Yeah.
David Fizdale is a big pickup to this coaching staff. Coach Fizz, I'm high on. Another reason you said if we ignore the nuances and just look at the fits between Westbrook and LeBron, I've looked back at those Miami Heat teams, and with the way the NBA was being played with way less spacing, Dwayne Wade was a lot of things. A shooter, he was not. He was a scorer. And with the space that's available in today's game, I believe if we saw LeBron and Wade have that much success, I don't see why Russell Westbrook and LeBron James can't either, because Wade was absolutely not someone who's going to stretch the floor by any means. And back in that time, we were still trying to evolve the whole stretch four position. In today's game with the spacing, I just don't think spacing is going to be that big of a problem because we've seen LeBron play with another perimeter player that wasn't exactly a floor spacer, if that makes sense.
No,
So there's a little
100%.
bit of history there.
I think that is a good comp actually. The difference is like at the end of the day, like what LeBron are we getting? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like we already noted on the slim down, and it's just a different version. So it's interesting to see what this team does. Vegas has them only at 52.5 wins. I'm pushing the over all day long on that.
What you got him at 52?
No, they're 55 plus, in my opinion. Easy. They should be the heavy favorite to be the number one seed team. coming out of the regular season. They should be the heavy favorite in the West coming out into the finals. When they get to the finals, we'll see what they are. But I think as far as when you stack them up against the rest of this conference, just talent wise and leadership wise, I don't think there's a team that can really match them.
Where do you have them? Can you give me a record for them?
I said 55 plus.
Can I get an actual record, please?
I'll
I don't
give
know what that
you.
means. That could be 72-10. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. That's a lot of records left off the table there.
I'm gonna say they're a 58 win team.
58 win team. Okay. Well, I just want to put this on the record. I got them at 61-21.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
60 win team. Another one for
Equally.
LeBron.
Yeah, another one.
Why
Yeah.
not?
I'm just looking, and we've gone over, I would say, a fair amount of the conference right now. I'm looking at this. Who's applying pressure for them not to get to like 60 wins? Like, I'm really looking for some tough competition somewhere. Like, tough. Because even if we want to give Golden State the benefit of the doubt, them getting to the Western Conference would be a complete overachievement for them. I mean, if you max out a lot of these teams, I just don't even see a team in the ballpark if the Lakers are even 85% of what they could possibly be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I
That's why.
agree with you, man.
Uh-huh.
Like I think they should be heavy favorites in this conference, and I'm just see what they look like early in the year.
Hmm.
Yeah, because
Did you see the schedule?
historically, I haven't paid too much attention to it, but I just know like a lot of times these LeBron teams do come out a little slow. Um, but with Russ there, I want to see like if he brings that energy right out the gate, which he always does, and if he could propel them to some early winning as well, that could really help that 60 win case.
I will say this: historically, the past two Laker LeBron teams, they've gone out to rip roaring starts. So it's going to be interesting since him and AD have been together. Obviously, we've talked about this. They've won 70+% of their games. So it's going to definitely be really interesting. But I'm super excited to see this.
Right. Dallas Mavericks moving into the last division here, the Southwest Division. Dallas Mavericks, they make the change of coach. They lose Rick Carlisle, who is my favorite coach, never win a playoff game in 10 years. They replace him with Jason Kidd. They get rid of Josh Richardson, bring in Reggie Bullock, Frank Ntilikina. To me, this team, like Jason Kidd, has a lot of question marks as far as being your head coach. The last two stops he had was Milwaukee and Brooklyn. He left sour taste in both those organizations' mouth. Milwaukee, when he left, they went from kind of like a fringe team to the number one defense in the East and became a true contender. They embraced more of a team concept on offense, not so much vanilla stuff that he was running.
Vanilla.
I want to know. I want to see what if his time on the Lakers bench has helped him grow. It's kind of a weird fit as well, just with the kind of the optics that organization has carried lately, bringing in a guy who also doesn't have the best optics for say, as far as
Yeah,
like his personal stuff. But I'm not
very
here to get
Tex,
into that.
very Texas of them.
Yeah, it's just it'll be interesting. There's a lot of question marks with that, especially on a team for me who has potential to be a real contender in this conference.
Oh wait, I'm so sorry. What does contender mean? I just want to get like on the record.
I think chemistry wise, if they could figure that out, this could be a top 4 seed in the conference.
Okay.
Mostly off the back of Luka Doncic because
I
that
was about to
man
say you asking for
is.
an MVP type season from Luka Legend.
Yeah, I don't think we could. I don't think we could expect anything less anymore. I think
Preach.
he's put himself on the map, dude. This guy last year averaging 27.7, 8 rebounds, 8.6 assists, and he single-handedly took on the Clippers team who had zero answers at stopping him, pretty much hoping he tires out by the end of the game and starts missing shots. That was their plan by the end of it. The thing is with Porzingis, that's the big kind of elephant in the room here. To me, like Porzingis, he's got to prove himself, man. He's got to prove he's what New York hoped he would be, and because if not, he's not going to be on this team very long.
Mm. Do you I should say, do you see him being on this team the rest of the year, or is he a little blip on the radar around the trade deadline?
I think he's definitely noted. He's
Right?
definitely a heavy candidate to get traded. He's got a favorable contract to get moved. He's got, but it depends how he comes out the gate. Because if he comes out the gate and he's just kind of like a really like just another guy who, but the problem with him is like all of a sudden, because in New York, man, this guy was a real rim defender, and now he can't move laterally to save his life. He's not really getting blocks the same way. Like he's a zero on defense and offense. He's hasn't grown too much, you know. So he's got a lot to prove.
Interesting. You know, I'm I'm man, this team has real buzz potential. Let me tell you. I could see this team being somewhere around the seventh seed, the eighth seed. They're gonna make the playoffs because they got Luca. I'm gonna just throw it. I'm not gonna disrespect the man like that. But if KP under Kid, if they can figure something out, if they can just figure something out, man, this team could be a top four seed. Um, I've got them currently as a fifth seed. I guess I got them winning 50 games. I have them winning 50 just because I believe in Luca that much. But this is gonna be like a LeBron job, bro. When he was in Cleveland that first stint, I don't see the talent. I like they are the man. Where's the talent on this roster?
Well, like you said, it starts with Luca, and Luca's that guy, and he this team was an offensive juggernaut. To be honest, they were eighth in offense rating, 114.6 rating last year. Luca gives them an element where they have a high amount of like drive and kick open threes for guys like Tim Hardaway, for Porzingis. They got Seth Curry still. Bringing in Reggie Bullock is going to be really nice because they brought in Josh Richardson hoping they'd get a 3-and-D guy, and they got no three from him. So
No,
you bring in a proven shooter in Bullock. I think that's actually a really good pickup for them to help kind of, he fits that team mold. You know what I mean? Um,
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm not looking at offensive juggernaut. I feel like pace really contributed to that. They were 24th in pace. I mean, they were 17th in points per game, which benefited their defense, believe it or not, because it slowed down the amount of possessions. So I'm looking at this team with Jason Kidd. If Jason Kidd wants to run, I don't know what their defense gonna look like. Because Luca, it benefits their defense that he dribbles, because it slows the game down for their team. But if they change that philosophy and Kidd wants to run up and down, it's gonna get real interesting defensively what this team is gonna end up looking like. Because we've seen that contribute to the Lakers defense, their pace. They slow the game down. So it's gonna be
let's
uh-huh.
That's another question mark on KP in my opinion, because he's got to get back to that defensive way, because him and Luca just like together in a vacuum were one of the worst defensive duos in the NBA. So like, and I don't expect Luca. He's giving you so much on the offensive end. I don't
Yeah.
expect him to start playing defense. So like the two question marks to on this team are going to be definitely the head coach and if they have a second running mate or not.
I'm interested to see their pace. I want to know under Kid, do they speed it up? I'm really interested in seeing that.
Let's go to another Texas team here. Going a little south to the Houston Rockets. Um, this is a rebuilding team, obviously. Anything you're excited for, Houston?
Jalen Green.
You want to expand?
I mean, this man is a baller, bro. I like his energy. I like his attitude. Houston, they getting lucky, man. They got James Harden because believe it or not, Harden's got that personality. He likes to champagne and campaign. And them getting Jalen Green, I'm happy for the city of Houston because he's gonna be entertaining for some years to come. So I'm big on him. But besides that, you basically said it best. This is a rebuilding team. We know what they're gonna be this season. They're gonna be one of the worst teams. It's gonna be interesting to see what Steven Silas does this season, knowing that he doesn't have to deal with the whole James Harden situation. I feel like we get to see a glimpse of maybe how he can coach this team. I'm interested to see Christian Wood back from injury. I want to see his development with this team. So they're just a really young team. Uh, it's going to be interesting, man. John Wall, what are they going to do with John Wall? Is he getting moved? I'm hearing Clipper talk. I'm hearing Philadelphia talk. There's a lot of question marks with John Wall. But besides that, it's a rebuilding team, and I don't expect much from them. But I'm looking at Steven Silas, and I'm looking at John Wall and Jalen Green. Those are three aspects I'm looking at for this team. Like, do they have a future in those young guys with Christian Wood and whatnot?
So reports are Eric Gordon and John Wall both expected to get dealt. Um, Obviously the John Wall one's really the tricky one just due to that contract. It almost seems like the John Wall, Chris Paul a couple years ago, the Westbrook, like they almost have to be traded for each other. That's almost like at least the trend is with those type of deals. I'm interested. There are teams that make sense for John Wall. I think you'd name one of the Clippers. But I would like to see them move. I actually, if you're a Rockets fan, I think you have a lot to be excited about, man. Not only you bring in Jalen Green, who could be the rookie of the year this season after that awesome summer league, man. He showed
Oh
his
my
athleticism.
God.
He's a 3-level scorer. He could be a real blue chip scorer in the NBA, which is, you can't ask for anything more. You bring in Alperen Sengun, who minimum coming out of the gate looks like he's going to be a rotation big man who could give you some punch in the low post.
Baby
Uh,
Jokic?
Nah, I wouldn't go that far. To me, when I look at Sengun, he's more in the Cantor mold.
Cantor nice. I mean,
I
his
know he's
footwork
nice. I'm not saying not.
is impressive.
Um, you obviously got Christian Wood, who has proven he could be a real player, a
He can
real
be a
starter in
future,
this
he can
league.
be a future player for them, for their franchise.
Something that you haven't hit on yet, who is pretty interesting to me, is Kevin Porter Jr. Okay, this is a guy they got for nothing. They traded a conditional second rounder to Cleveland to get him. He had some issues that with the locker room and stuff like that, but
Facilitated them getting him for some peanuts, basically.
yeah, but in his 26 games last year, this man averaged 16.6 points, 6.3 assists. He even had a 50-point performance thrown in there. This is a guy who's got real offensive skill. He can hit step back jumpers. He could take it to the lane. He can make pretty much all the passes. And this is also him playing out of position, next to John Wall, which is huge because you bring in Jalen Green. And if you move John Wall, you really let the young guys go, man. And you could have 3, maybe 4, like real building block pieces to start out this rebuild.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What franchise is in a better situation? Oklahoma City with the draft picks or the Houston Rockets in your eyes?
Right now, I'm going to go with OKC because they got Shea and plus draft picks. And it's mostly because I haven't seen Jalen Green in the regular season yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be able to give you a better assessment at the end of the year.
Of course.
I would take Oklahoma City's situation.
I would definitely take the Houston Rockets because I have Jalen Green in my building. And I don't know right now because I believe Jalen Green, I love Shea, but those 17 picks, the thing about picks, they still got to get drafted. They're like mystery pieces, if you will. Like, I don't have a face to those. Like, it's good to have those picks and then not have anything. But when I'm looking at the potential on this, like actual players, I'm a big fan of Christian Wood. I think he's something special. And you hit it with Kevin Porter Jr. I don't know, man. If you're a Houston fan, you might be in better situation than you thought after that James Harden fiasco. Like,
yeah, definitely, dude. Like I said, there's a lot to be excited for this team. They're gonna do a lot of losing. Defense is still gonna be a huge issue. I still don't see them winning too many games, but
this team has the potential to be that team to like really ruin a playoff team's like seed towards the end of the season. I see that being this team. Like, you're trying to get into that play-in tournament situation and you sleep on the Rockets and they beat you by 30. Like, I just see that type of potential from this team. They're gonna be entertaining. You know what? I'm gonna watch some Houston Rockets games. I'm not gonna lie. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, even the guys they took in the second round, like if you watch them in the summer league, they look like they could be rotational pieces as well. So
yeah,
if you're hitting on picks, you could make the rebuild a lot faster than were
Al-
initially
Also,
thought. So
and to just close my part on this, Steven Silas again. I just want to see what they have in a coach. I want to see, because even though we know they're not going to win a lot of games, you can still tell a lot, And now he doesn't have to deal with a bunch of stuff looming over the entire season and all that. So I'm excited to see what Steven Silas is going to bring to the table as a coach.
we're going from a young coach in Steven Silas. We'll transition to the oldest coach in the NBA, or at least the oldest tenured, Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs.
Oh,
Um,
I got to hear this. I got to hear this.
uh, their over under win total is 28 and a half. You lose DeMar DeRozan, you lose Patty Mills, you draft Joshua Primo and in the draft this offseason. Uh, this team, they're a confusing team for me because I don't know what their plan is. I don't know what direction they're going in here. You had you kind of committed to the development of DeJounte Murray, Derek White, but by selecting them and putting as much faith as you are in those guys, are you kind of holding this team ceiling back in a sense? You brought in Keldon Johnson last year, had a decent rookie campaign, about 13 points, 6 boards. I just don't know what their end goal is here.
I don't either. I don't know if they do either. I'm not. No, I think you didn't. You nailed it with just being really curious as to what the hell they're doing. I don't feel like they have a plan set in motion either. But they've got some. They got honestly, you got Lonnie Walker. They've got people, but like I don't. There's just nothing to be excited about with this roster. I don't know what this is. I also expect this to be the last Greg Popovich season. I think he calls it quits after this, and that's what this roster I believe is indicative of. I'm looking at this roster, and ain't no way in hell I see Greg Popovich coming back after this season. I don't
Well,
see a.
that's what I was gonna say. Is like it almost feels like they're just kind of waiting him out.
That's what it looks like. I'm looking at this roster, and usually you see a plan, you see something. It's a really young roster. I give him that. It's hella young, and I think what we've also noticed in the league is how is Pop really relating to these players? Come on now.
Well, the thing with Pop is he gets their guys to compete, right? He's last year, even with this like limited talent wise, they were still 17th in defense rating, 19th in offense rating, about middle of the pack, both a little on the lesser side. But the problem is like Popovich historically has been ahead of the curve as far as changing the team's play style around the league. You think about like in that 12 to 14 years, he was kind of one of the first like real pace and space pick and roll, spread the floor teams. He's always been ahead of the curve, but he's kind of had a reluctance to shoot threes and kind of just result in the old school style that doesn't really fit today's NBA. Last year, they only attempted about 28 and a half attempts, which is easily last in the league. And I know, it doesn't help when you have guys like DeRozan on your team and you're building around LaMarcus at one point. But
I was about
I
to say that you say he's been ahead of the curve. He's also been ahead of the curve on rebuilding because he's had Hall of Famers he's been coaching. That's what he's been ahead of the curve on. And we go. I mean, I just call it what it is, man. At every stage, this man's had a Hall of Fame player on his roster. This is truly the first time we're looking at this guy with like that doesn't have that. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm over Pop, to be honest with you. I don't believe he can coach today's players. I just have a hard time believing guys that are 22, 21, 19 on this roster can do anything with Greg Popovich. There's a disconnect. This is a new age and new era, bro. And there's no Tim Duncan there that's a vet that's established that even those young, talented players can follow the lead of at least that guy. They don't have that guy on this roster. So it's literally pop to the youth. And you stated it with like him being reluctant to change philosophies and he looks outdated. I'm over Pop and I'm over the whole experiment. And it looks like they are too looking at this roster right now because this roster is pathetic.
is it Becky Hammond next year or what?
It should be. It should be. But we know it probably won't be. But I'm more so looking forward to next season with the San Antonio Spurs. I want to see what it looks like in the in the
After another
draft
lottery pick or what?
after another lottery pick as well, and after Pop resigns. I think I'm going to be really interested to see what direction the San Antonio Spurs are going to go in. I'm really excited to see that because right now this season is much about nothing, bro. Like this roster it's awful.
All right. So from one young team to another, this one a little more exciting. We're going to
Give me
talk
some.
about the Memphis Grizzlies. They have an over under 41.5 wins. As far as moves go, you kind of trade the centers. You go from a low post scorer and Valanciunas to a rebound and defending guy and Steven Adams. Um, what do you expect from Memphis this year?
I don't know if you're ready for this. I don't know if you're ready for this, but I got Memphis in the playoffs again this season. I got them at the 7th seed, and I believe they win about 47 to 48 wins, 47 to 48 games.
Only a 7 seed with that amount of wins?
Yeah, fam. I believe it's going to be competitive. There's just some teams there's some question marks. I think it's going to be competitive, but I don't think they're actual contenders in the West. That's the thing. I've got Portland getting 50 wins. I've got Dallas getting 50. I've got the Nuggets getting 50. Um, just because there's so much trash at the bottom of the conference, I think they're going to beat up on each other. But they're not actual contenders, I believe. But I like Memphis. I like their backcourt with Dylan Brooks and John Morant. I think people are sleeping on John Morant. That performance that he put forth in the playoffs was otherworldly. I think he's a superstar in the making. I'm big on John Morant. So I don't know. Looking at them last year, defensively, they had the sixth best defensive rating. Offensively, they were middle of the road. I expect them to improve on that, and I think they go as John Morant goes. But Grayson Allen, I wasn't expecting his production last season. I don't know if that was just me. I don't really like Duke players, if I'm being honest with you. I'm a hater, but I did not think Grayson was going to be able to come in and give them 10.5 points, few rebounds, and a couple of assists. Like he showed some real promise last season. He shot 39% from three on 5.5 attempts. So I'm intrigued with Grayson Allen. I'm really big on the Memphis Grizzlies. People forget they beat the Golden State Warriors in a winner go home game in Golden State. That's huge.
Do you have any expectations for Jaren Jackson Jr. finally
Oh,
coming to the season healthy? I know he tore a meniscus in the bubble. Finally gonna get a full off season and whatnot.
absolutely. I expect him to absolutely come back with a vengeance. For his career, he's been around 15 points per game. This season, I got him around 18. I think he takes a really big step offensively because I think their team is going to be dependent on that offensively. I think it'll help them with their middle of the pack offense because their defense is stout. They're a top 10 defensive rating team. So I'm excited for Jaren Jackson Jr. Man, people forget he's only 22 years old.
I'm actually with you on Memphis. I'm really high on
Let's
this team.
go. Let's go.
I'm pushing the over on them. I think bringing in Steven Adams actually really helps their defense to even improve even more, to maybe be a top 5 team defensively. I'm looking for Ja though. I'm looking at Ja. I want to see what his development looks like. Last year, his counting numbers are good. Nothing like super great. He was at 19 and a half, 7.4, only shot 30% from 3. So if he could bring that up and kind of take more of the load offensively, kind of like some of these other modern guards, and kind of pushes their offense rating more towards the top 10 instead of like that 15th range. This team could actually surprise people and make a push for a top 4 seed in the West.
You know what? I'm with you, but I actually like Jaw's been improving offensively. He's around 18 and a half. He averaged 19 last year. He's an actual point guard, though. I don't think people give him enough credit. He has tremendous scoring ability, and in the postseason, you saw him put up the 40-point games. You saw him. He does what's expected of him, but we don't get the development of Dylan Brooks, and we don't get the development of Grayson Allen if he's one of those other point guards that's just putting up numbers in the regular season. So I like his feel for the game, if that makes sense. Because we know if he wanted to, I believe he could average 27, 28 points a game. He's a facilitator. His assist totals for his career is already 7.3. Like I believe he's gonna be a 20 and 10 guy in a couple seasons.
Jaw's one of my favorite players in the NBA. I think he's got a good temperament, a good mindset to him. He is
Yeah,
an uber athletic for his position.
stupid.
Um, but I agree with you. Like he is kind of more of a pure point in that
Hmm.
like more classic sense. I'm saying though, if your team as just to help your team, right? Because this is a young team, and I understand you want development, and I think Jaren Jackson's going to help them a lot coming back. You know,
Yeah.
he has real kind of scoring potential, but I think Jaw has the capability to keep just, and it's not really like taking away from the other guy's development as much as like just having a feel of when to be more aggressive, get to the free
Hmm.
throw line a lot more. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Stuff like that to kind of just help your team score a little more points. And I think there's a balance, and as he matures as a player, you know, I think Taylor Jenkins has done a really great job for them. Um,
I agree.
I think I like this team. I like this team. I would not be surprised if they push for 50 wins.
I
I
wouldn't.
don't think they quite get there, but I
Same.
wouldn't be surprised either.
I'm really stoked to see Memphis this season. Like that's my team this year. I mean, obviously I'm a Laker fan, but I'm big on John Morant because we saw what Trey Young represents in the East, and I think Trey Young is phenomenal. But I saw what, like, at the end of the day, talent was pretty equal on both sides. I saw Ja go in Steph's building and beat him. Like, that's huge on me. Dropping 30 plus points, like that's huge for me. So when I saw that from Jaw and he took a game off you, I'm like, you know what, Jaw, get down with your bad self.
All right, moving on. Uh, the New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh my god, you gotta take this one.
Okay, so we got another young team here. You lose, obviously, you make a coaching change. You get rid of Stan Van Gundy. Uh, I'm sorry, Zion. You bring
Uh,
in
you gotta
Willie
put your sleeves
Green.
up. You gotta push your sleeves up. Yeah.
You bring in Willie Green to coach his team, first year coach. Devontae Graham, you pick up from Charlotte. You bring in Valanciunas, as we just mentioned, from Memphis. Satoransky could be a low key good pickup for them. Um, the thing with this team, right, is you have Zion Williamson,
Hmm.
who is just an absolute force, who is unstoppable in the paint. It doesn't matter who's in front of him. He doesn't even have to dunk the ball anymore, and
No.
you just can't stop him in the paint. You also have a high end wing, um, versatile scorer and Brandon Ingram. You know, he had a nice year. He averaged 24 points, 5 and 5 pretty much. You know, he's still got room for development as well. But if you're David Griffin,
You fire yourself?
like he's just done little to nothing to surround Zion with the complementary talent. Even going as far as to for an unknown reason to me, and like I am still trying to figure out why, to get rid of his really the guy he got like played with best on the floor in Lonzo,
Lonzo.
you know, who's only improving and gaining confidence, and his teammates love it. Like that move, like just giving him away for nothing. I didn't understand. I do like that, you know, get rid of Adams, get rid of Bledsoe, guys that just don't fit your spacing or just the overall timeline of this team at all. Like I like those moves, but like getting rid of Lonzo, man, that I feel like that could really hurt this team. And not only that, like on the court, but morale wise as well, because you have a lot of guys that have been with Lonzo for a long time, and I just don't understand that move.
I think
This
this is.
team, go
Uh,
ahead, go ahead.
I think this is going to be one of the worst teams in the Western Conference. I got them in the bottom two. I mean, they're right there with. I believe Minnesota will probably win more games than they will. The only team I know for a fact they'll win more games than is probably San Antonio.
OKC.
San Antonio and OKC. That's it. I mean, New Orleans, Zion. First of all, I'm a fan of Zion, but what you hear coming out does not sound good for a guy going into his third season. It sounds really negative. His seems like his family has a lot of say in what's going on, and they've been very vocal. They want to leave. You're reading the tea leaves regarding the NBA and Silver looking into relocating some of these teams, and New Orleans at the top of the list. You've got people inside the organization well, Zion specifically, his family's bothered because of the way the resources are divvied up, because the ownership is the same ownership for the New Orleans Saints, and that's the moneymaker for the owners. And it seems like the practice facility and some of the things aren't as first class as they could be for the Pelicans. It's a lot going on over there, man. To me, that's the biggest shitstorm in the association right now. It's toxic, man. It's bad.
New Orleans, like, man, they just can't get it right.
They can't get it
They
right,
can't get
man.
it right.
It,
They were gifted by the NBA and by the Lakers. Like the Lakers gave them a core, and then the NBA gave them a blue chipper.
They gave
Like,
him no, absolutely. They gave them Zion. They said, "Look, give out AD, and we got you." You know, and I'm looking at it. This is the only team in the league to me that's like borderline. You know, when Eli Manning didn't want to play for who was the team Eli Manning didn't want to play for coming out of college, and he's like, "I'm gonna stay if they
it's the
draft me."
Chargers.
It was the Chargers. The Pelicans are starting to get that feel, bro, because you saw Zion on draft night with the lottery. He did not want to go to New Orleans. He's been vocal, like he's been sneak dissing them since they drafted him. Like they're gonna have to do something with this team because players aren't gonna want to play for that organization.
I initially thought Luca could be this guy, but Zion is the obvious candidate in today's landscape of player empowerment, right? I'm waiting for the extreme measure to be taken
Yep,
where one of these guys finally doesn't take that
sign.
rookie extension
Yep,
and
mhm.
they take hands in their own play, take their future in their own hands. Say, I'm betting on myself. I'm gonna get this one more year, and I'm gonna become a free agent right out the gates next year, unrestricted. Like, and Zion, all indications say like he could actually make that move, which
No,
is
we
not a
can.
good thing for the NBA, but it could be a great thing for Zion.
It's a great thing for the NBA because I believe they'll relocate the New Orleans Saints as soon as I mean the New Orleans Pelicans as soon as possible. You got to move that franchise. You got to move them.
Well, first of all, you got the worst arena name, and you get the worst mascot,
Oh God,
like
bro, that's
the worst colorways.
it's a bad market, bro. You gotta move them to Seattle. Give them a team. Like there's places you can give them.
Vegas.
Give them to Vegas. They need a city that's gonna get behind them. Because if you look in New Orleans, what's their fan base really? Like, I don't know.
So just talking about the actual team here, defensively, they really worry me. Last year they were 23rd with a 113.3 rating. But you're losing some decent defenders, man. Lonzo Ball is an underrated perimeter defender. Steven Adams, his rebounder, something that clogs up the middle. You're getting rid of him, which I agree with for offensive purposes, and next to Zion. But defensively, you're going to take a step back, especially when the guys you're bringing in are Valanciunas and Devontae Graham. Like, this could be one of the worst defensive teams in the league easily. I mean, Zion's not a true defender himself.
No, he's not. He's not in shape
Like,
either, from all reports. But
um, offensively, this team could still pose some problems. They don't have much shooting. Their 113 rating last season, they were 11th. But losing Lonzo once again, man, like it's a big drop off as far as at the guard, in my opinion. What do you want to see from Brandon Ingram's development?
I want to see because they went out and got the Pringle guy. They got Mike D'Antoni as a consultant in their front office. Hopefully, he empowers Willie Green to put that ball in Bi's hands. Now that you don't have Lonzo, I'm sorry, unleash Bi. I want the ball in his hands. I believe he's an underrated playmaker. I just want to see him take the reins of the offense. If I'm being honest with you, I get the ball out of Zion's hands. I'm sorry, I'm just not a fan of it. Good things happen, but with this team, Bi is the one with the perimeter game. It's just I don't know. I really want to see the reins taken off and let him take full control over the offense.
So that plan kind of makes me nervous.
What? Which point?
As far as like giving it all to Bi.
Well, way more.
And the reason isn't like capability or ability. It's just to me, like the developmental step that I would like to see from BI coming into next year is his feel, his game sense and knowledge and IQ. Because to me, a lot of times when I'm watching him, he makes the game a lot harder than it has to be. You know, especially the guy with his intangibles. He's got all the right stuff to becoming more efficient. If he continues working on his range, um, but he takes a lot of contested mid-range jumpers that he really doesn't need to because he has the capability to drive the ball to finish. So I just want to see him gain more of a feel, and maybe putting the ball in his hands, like you said, could help that. Like just giving him
I
more reps.
Yeah, I think that to me is huge because he keeps playing off the. I don't believe he's as much of an off ball player as the roles he's been put in. I think that needs to go up, and that'll help with feel. And look at the coaches that he's had. He had Gentry. You went and got Stan Van Gundy, which I was against from jump. I did not like that hire. I just They need consistency, and I think he needs consistency, and I think his feel will get a lot better. Because I know if we give Bi to some of these other coaches, like can you imagine him in Miami with Spoelstra? I believe that whole feel thing goes away. It just seems really chaotic in New Orleans. Like I don't see any philosophy. It's just man, it's just a shit storm. Prayers for Willie Green, man, because that is not a desirable job whatsoever.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be the Western Conference. Any last thoughts, Christian?
Um, for the first time in a long time, I'm gonna be really looking forward to seeing the Eastern Conference this season because the West is just, the West is the West, but the East is definitely gonna have much more of my attention than it has in past years.
Yeah, that'll be our next one. It's going to be the East. We'll give you a complete rundown then. But for now, thank you for listening to episode number 1, and we'll look forward to talking to you again.